In a single year, the US government collected over $70 billion in tariffs, a hidden tax that's quietly paid by American importers, not by foreign governments as many people assume. These tariffs are charged at the border, long before products ever reach store shelves. These extra costs don't just disappear. They become embedded in the price of everyday items, from bicycles to baby monitors, and even the most basic household goods. Shoppers may not notice at first, but over time, the impact adds up. For Walmart, a company built on the promise of low prices and everyday savings, this was a seismic challenge that threatened its core business model. The Trump administration's trade policies forced importers to make a tough choice: either absorb these new costs and risk shrinking profits, or pass them along to consumers in the form of higher prices. Walmart, the world's largest retailer, was especially exposed due to its deep reliance on low-cost Chinese manufacturing. The company sources thousands of products from China, making it vulnerable to sudden changes in trade policy. When tariffs hit, Walmart's cost of goods soared, triggering a chain reaction that reached all the way to the checkout line. Shoppers began to see higher totals on their receipts, sometimes without realizing why. The mechanics are simple. Tariffs are paid by US companies at the border, not by China. This means American businesses shoulder the burden, and those costs ripple through the entire supply chain. For Walmart, this meant billions in new expenses, ultimately impacting American shoppers who rely on the retailer for affordable goods. Families across the country felt the squeeze in their weekly budgets. This story isn't just about economics. It's about how global trade policy lands directly in your shopping cart, affecting what you pay for the things you need every day. In this chapter, we'll explore the purpose behind these tariffs, Walmart's deep connection to China, and how these costs travel from the port to the price tag on the shelf. By following this journey, we'll see how trade wars reshape both corporate strategy and household budgets, forcing tough decisions at every level. And we'll ask, what does this mean for the future of global trade and for American consumers who depend on affordable prices? The answers may surprise you. The Trump administration's trade war was built on economic nationalism, aiming to protect US industries and shrink the trade deficit. Tariffs were the weapon of choice starting in 2018 with Section 301 actions against China for unfair trade practices. Initial tariffs targeted industrial goods, but quickly expanded to consumer products, Walmart's bread and butter. By late 2018, tariffs covered hundreds of billions in Chinese imports, including furniture, luggage, and food. In 2019, rates jumped to 25%, raising the stakes for retailers. China retaliated, targeting US exports and fueling global uncertainty. For Walmart, this meant unpredictable costs and constant supply chain recalibration. The goal was to pressure China and encourage US manufacturing, but the immediate effect was a direct tax on American importers. As tariffs spread across Walmart's shelves, the stage was set for a collision between government policy and the low-price retail model. Walmart's famous everyday low prices are not just a marketing slogan. They rely on sourcing products from the world's most cost-effective manufacturers, with China at the very heart of this strategy. For decades, Walmart has built its reputation on offering unbeatable prices, and this has been possible largely because of its deep connections with Chinese suppliers. Before the US-China trade war, as much as 70 to 80% of certain Walmart product categories were sourced directly from China, making Chinese factories essential to Walmart's business model and product variety. This deep integration made Walmart not just a customer, but a central player in a vast, interconnected global supply network that spanned continents and involved thousands of suppliers. The unmatched efficiency and scale of Chinese manufacturing allowed Walmart to offer prices that competitors simply couldn't match, drawing millions of budget-conscious shoppers to its stores. However, this heavy reliance on China became a major vulnerability when tariffs and trade tensions escalated, threatening the very foundation of Walmart's low-price promise. Walmart's supply chain is a logistical marvel. Goods flow seamlessly from Chinese factories to US ports, and then on to thousands of stores across the country, keeping shelves stocked and prices low. But with new tariffs, unavoidable costs were added at the border, disrupting this finely tuned system and forcing Walmart to rethink its entire approach. Decades of building a China-centric supply ecosystem couldn't be undone overnight. The relationships, infrastructure, and expertise developed over years were not easily replaced. While Walmart had already begun diversifying its sourcing to countries like Vietnam and India, shifting such a massive and complex supply chain is a slow, expensive, and challenging process. The sudden imposition of tariffs forced Walmart to accelerate these efforts. But there was no quick fix. Adapting to new suppliers and logistics networks takes time and resources. The company now faced a complex, expensive transition, with rising costs and uncertainty, and no guarantee of smooth sailing ahead as it navigated this new global landscape. The financial impact of tariffs on Walmart was immediate and massive. Practically overnight, the company faced a new reality, one where the cost of doing business had fundamentally changed. A 25% tariff on a product meant a 25% higher import cost, billions in new expenses for Walmart. These tariffs applied to a huge range of goods, multiplying the effect across Walmart's vast inventory. Take a bicycle. An $80 import from China now costs $100 before shipping or distribution. That's a $20 jump per unit, and when you multiply that by thousands of bikes, the numbers add up fast. Walmart's thin profit margins left little room to absorb these costs. Even a small increase in expenses can have a big impact on the bottom line for a retailer of this scale. Executives warned, higher prices for consumers were inevitable. They had to be transparent with shoppers about why prices were rising. The tariffs hit thousands of everyday items: furniture, apparel, electronics, core Walmart categories. Shoppers felt the impact on products they buy every week. When costs rise across the board, the pressure is immense. Both customers and employees feel the strain as affordability becomes a challenge. Beyond the direct tax, Walmart had to invest more in compliance, logistics, and finding new suppliers. The company scrambled to adapt its supply chain, which required time and resources. These operational headaches further eroded profits. Every new challenge meant more costs and less flexibility. The tariffs didn't just add a tax. They introduced friction and expense into Walmart's entire global model. The company's ability to offer low prices was directly threatened. The company was caught between its low-price promise and the harsh reality of trade war economics. Balancing customer expectations with new costs became a daily struggle. The result: a new, costly layer in the journey from factory to shelf. For Walmart and its millions of customers, tariffs meant higher prices and a more complicated path to value. With billions in new costs, Walmart faced a tough choice: absorb the hit or raise prices. The scale made shielding consumers impossible. Higher prices became reality on store shelves. Everyday items like car seats and furniture saw noticeable price jumps. A car seat sourced from China could cost $25 more wholesale, pushing retail prices up for families. Multiply this across a shopping trip, and the impact on budgets was significant. Studies confirmed Chinese exporters didn't lower prices to offset tariffs. The burden fell on U.S. importers and consumers. For Walmart's price-sensitive shoppers, these hikes were especially painful. The trade war, meant to protect American interests, acted as a regressive tax on those least able to afford it. Walmart warned policymakers tariffs on consumer goods would hit American families hardest. The checkout counter became the front line of global trade tensions. Ultimately, it was the consumer who paid the price. Walmart's financials tell the story. Before tariffs, stable costs allowed for healthy profit margins, 24.7% in 2018. As tariffs took hold, margins shrank and costs rose. Walmart's massive scale and e-commerce growth helped cushion the blow, but the strain was clear. Executives cited tariffs as a persistent headwind, forcing tougher supplier negotiations and tighter inventory management. The company weathered the storm, but the era of stable, low-cost sourcing was over. Tariffs forced a fundamental rethink of Walmart's sourcing strategy and profit engine. Walmart's price hikes rippled through the U.S. economy, fueling inflation. As the nation's largest retailer, Walmart's pricing moves shaped the cost of living for millions. The trade war's goal was to boost U.S. manufacturing, but higher input costs often hurt American businesses and jobs. Retaliatory tariffs from China hit U.S. exporters, especially farmers. Uncertainty chilled business investment. Why expand if trade policy could shift overnight? The tariffs strained global relationships and made the international trading system more fragmented. The result? A more challenging, unpredictable environment for American companies and consumers alike. Walmart didn't stand still. It launched a strategic pivot to survive the trade war. The company accelerated supply chain diversification, sourcing more from Vietnam, India, and Mexico. Sourcing teams raced to find new factories, invest in capacity, and rework logistics. Walmart also pressured Chinese suppliers to lower prices, sometimes forcing tough choices on both sides. Product lines were tweaked, and domestic alternatives explored where possible. These moves built resilience, but added complexity and cost. Walmart's rapid adaptation was a masterclass in corporate agility. The trade war forced the retailer to reinvent its global playbook in real time. The Trump-era tariffs challenged Walmart's core business and reshaped its global strategy. Tariffs raised costs, squeezed margins, and forced a costly supply chain overhaul. Walmart absorbed some pain, but much was passed to consumers, fueling inflation and uncertainty. The trade war's legacy, a permanent shift away from single-source manufacturing and toward fragmented, risk-averse supply chains. Walmart's experience is a microcosm of how protectionist policies clash with global realities. As nations weigh economic nationalism against global integration, the future of low-cost retail hangs in the balance. The question remains, can the high-efficiency, low-price model survive in a fractured world? The answer will shape the next era of global commerce and your next trip to the store.